Again, a temperance, that's all I can call it, is a temperance movement. The idea that we should somehow be pushing people away from drinking alcohol, this is now translating into possible policy out of the administration. Talk to us about this.
Yeah, so we've seen this really strange mission creep where folks in the public health lobby who spent decades trying to fight smoking have now basically taken the same playbook and turned it to alcohol.
Right.
And we'll see them say things like there is no safe amount of alcohol, which is such a ridiculous thing to say. It's like saying there's no safe amount of swimming or driving or intimate relations with other people. Life has risks. We get it. And these public health control freaks just start driving the narrative that we have to start lecturing Americans. This is one of the rare moments where I actually get to share what could be some pretty good news. And it looks like for the dietary guidelines in the US that the administration is going to move away from telling people how many drinks per week or how many drinks maximum per day they should have for a more general drink in moderation disclaimer, which is an incredibly refreshing moment where we're not going down the road of paternalism. We're not going down the road of the nanny state or lecturing adults. It's actually also, in my opinion, the better approach because so the guidelines of don't have more than 2 drinks per week, or two drinks per day, depends on the person. Right. What's your tolerance? What's your family history? Your family history may actually suggest that you don't consume alcohol at all. Are you a larger male or a smaller female? All of those things completely change how your body reacts to alcohol. And so it was incredibly refreshing to see at least reports that they were considering going the direction of just moderation rather than this paternalistic neo-prohibitionist mindset of
and that's just it, right? Anything. Listen, I'm happy that we have anything short of this idea that there is no safe dose, there's no safe serving of alcohol, which is, again, if we're in an era in which we're supposed to be following the science, right? We're supposed to be guided by the science, that science is supposed to guide public policy. The idea that we're going down this road, and yet this is what's happening all over the world, David, and this is what concerns me, is that so much of the nanny staters, they adopt what's happening over in Europe and elsewhere. Talk about this movement abroad and how it came about, why it came about. I mean, this is crazy to me.
Well, okay, so I'll give you this. This is almost going to sound like crazy.
Sure.
But there was a prohibitionist group called the International Order of Good Templars, and they drove the prohibition discussion in the U.S. and elsewhere back during that time. That group never actually went away. They changed their name to Movendi now.
Okay.
And they officially advise the World Health Organization on alcohol policy.
Okay.
And their researchers are on these research panels that the Biden administration had research conducted on alcohol consumption. Health Canada, which is Canada's FDA, paid some of these people to do research on alcohol consumption. And so you have hardcore prohibitionists who actually have a seat at the table in terms of trying to advise Americans or Canadians or Europeans on what the appropriate level of alcohol is. And it's crazy. I mean, the best way I could frame it would be, imagine if the FDA was trying to figure out, okay, what's the ideal amount of meat that somebody should consume in a given week? And they paid researchers who are affiliated with People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. PETA. The answer, it's a foregone conclusion.
Of course.
Their answer is going to be as close to zero as possible because nobody should eat meat.
Right.
And that is the circumstance we're in. And when these folks from Movendi have a seat at the table, it's like, we already know. I don't disagree. I'm totally fine with them having an opinion.
Of course.
But I have a lot of questions about them taking that opinion and trying to mask it as science.
Right.
As
Here in the States, right, we've got a process, right? We've got a process under the Administrative Procedure Act, this thing called notice and comment rulemaking, where anybody can submit a comment, right? That's the beauty of it. So if we're talking about dietary standards for meat, PETA can submit their opinion on this. The National Pork Producers or the National Cattlemen's Beef Association, they can submit their comments on this, and chances are, the truth is somewhere in between all of them, right? In all of this, and so, but ultimately, a lot of this rests on the choice, right? If you want to have a lot, not that I want to get all on meat. The point is, at the end of the day, you don't have either PETA or National Cattlemen's Beef Association writing the policy. This is something that Liz Truss, the very brief Prime Minister of Great Britain, talked about, where she talked about quangos, quasi non-governmental organizations. This is the problem when they outsource this to folks with a political agenda. That's what we're talking about, David, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it happens in the environmental space. It happens in the public health space. And why are taxpayers paying NGOs who then turn around and lobby government for policy change? So as an American taxpayer, when this happens, you're essentially paying for these Looney Tunes to go ahead and lobby the government for policy change that impacts your life. And the other added aspect of this, which I find especially worth noting, is that when these organizations, for the most part, majority of them depend on government funding, well, they rely on government funding because they can't get support from the public. And they can't get support from the public because their ideas aren't popular.
Right.
And so it's just a really terrible, vicious cycle of circular lobbying that, I mean, there was some focus on it in Doge, and there's been a fairly major scandal in Europe.
Right.
More recently on exactly this, where it's like, wait a second, the loudest and proudest NGOs who are driving policy change get 70-80% of their budget from the government. Wait a second, how is that?
Right.
Who approved this?
Excellent.
How is that possible?
Listen, David, it's an excellent point. We got to leave it there. Thank you so very much. How do folks find out more about the good work that you're doing? ConsumerChoiceCenter.org, or follow me on Twitter at Clement Liberty. At Clement Liberty. I was putting the emphasis on the wrong syllable, David. David Clement, thank you so very much for